Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to Strawberry Shift, where we have enthusiasm for love. And today is day 17. Day 17. You are on the final stretch for Celebrate Compassion. I'm so happy to do this with you. This is something I was reflecting about it this morning. I was imagining someone like you watching this and actually doing these exercises and the awesome ripple effect that this is making in our world. So I want to take a moment and thank you for not only having the courage to do this, but also the desire. That is very beautiful. And I'm really excited to talk to you about what we are going to cover today for day 17. So, how was yesterday for you? How was day 16? I've had many people, by the way, you're not alone if you're not doing these back to back, day to day. Okay. In fact, I find most people take a couple of days to go through these because I know it's a lot. The day 16 was about hearing someone's story, someone you care about. And I'm curious what that was like for you. I know that for myself, I have really enjoyed getting to know different parts of the people I love and my clients. I recently got referred a beautiful new soul as a client, and I did my intake that I shared with you about. I'm going to share something with you that I don't believe that most people realize that is true about us human beings. I know this to be true because of my profession, because I talk to people all day long. Every single human being walking this earth has a story. Every single one. Even the ones that you ask them, what's your story? And they say they don't have one. No, they have one. They might have minimized it. They might not have wanted to tell you about it. They have one. Every single human being walking this earth has a story. And I have yet to meet a human being who I'm not in awe of, like genuine, true awe. And I've been contemplating this. Why don't we share our stories more? Like, we have these treasures inside of us. Each of us do. You have one too. Whether you believe, no, Mandy, my life's been boring, or it's not been that great. Here's my theory as to why we don't share our stories and why we don't ask other people to share their stories. Let me know in the comments what you think of this. I believe that we don't share our stories, and it's true for everyone. It's because no one has paid attention to us and to our stories. If you're anything like me and most people I've interacted with, you have trauma. So what is trauma? Quick review. Trauma is a disconnect from who you are, right? So you don't believe, who are we? We are love. That's who you are. You're love. I'm love. That's who we are. That's why I want to have enthusiasm for love, because it's enthusiasm for you. It's enthusiasm for me. And we minimize love. Think about it. We live on a planet. It's all about fear. It's all about greed. It's all about competition. And we believe that we're separate from each other. We don't believe that we're actually interconnected. And so because of that, we aren't seen, heard, and understood. What happens is we go through these life challenges and experiences that are unbelievable, and we minimize them, put them in the corner like, yeah, I did that, but no big deal. MBD, no big deal. No one's paying us for the story. We have to have like something super epic. We're not famous and we're not rich, so no one's paying us, and no one's paying us with their attention, right? So think of those words, pay attention. So because we went through this and no one paid attention to what we went through, we attach meaning that it's not valuable, that it's not awesome, that it's not like, how are you still breathing? How are you alive? My new client, again, every single person has a story. And this man is so beautiful, and he exudes kindness and generosity. And when I heard his story, I've never known anybody whose life has been threatened more than my client. and from a young age, from his own family. Yet here he is now as an adult and a very successful adult, and you would not know it. And what he's been through, it's jaw-dropping. And so I know you have a story as well. And I know you likely have minimized it. You've likely minimized the value of it. You've likely minimized the medicine. So I'm going to invite you to step back for a minute. Imagine you and I are in space. Whoa, we're in space together. And we're looking at planet Earth, okay? And isn't she beautiful? Mother Gaia, planet Earth. And imagine, play with me here with your imagination. Imagine we could see all the fear. We could see Mother Earth just covered in all of this fear. Just like, I think of fear as like the color black because it's dark, right? When you share your story, it's medicine. It's medicine, and everybody's story is like a different color. Some stories are very healing. So let's say it's like a green color that is exuded and helps heal Mother Earth. And then some people, it's really uplifting and inspiring. And let's say it's more of a pink color. And so whenever you share your story, it's medicine because that person receives it. That's why, you know, the movies you watch and the books you read and the music you listen to impacts you. It's like, are you taking in fear, or are you taking in inspiration? Are you taking in courage? So it's so important to understand that your story matters. You've lived on this planet and no one else is you. No one else has gone through what you've gone through. And even if they've gone through, let's say, no, Mandy, actually, a lot of people have gone through what I've gone through. Okay, fair enough. But no one's gone through what you've gone through being you, with your eyes, with your ears, with your heart, with your perception. So you're going to tell your story in a very, very unique way. And someone is going to hear your story differently than if someone else told their story. And you never know how it's going to impact. So going back to my new client, I decided to do this, intake with clients because it just seemed dumb obvious now. There's no way I can not do it now because now I know this man so much better. If I just tried to jump in and start to coach him without knowing this epic background, it would have been such a disservice to him. And that's what I did most of my career. And that's why I was like playing catch up. And that's why clients would get stuck and I would experience what I teach my coaches called marmota madness, which marmota is Spanish for groundhog, which is like repeating the same thing over and over again. I don't experience that now because I understand my client's backstory. I created this to understand my clients. And I also know that it feels good to be seen, heard, and understood. It does. It feels good when someone seems to be interested and care about your story, right? That feels good thing. It's a human, very, very, very natural thing for us as humans to want to be seen, heard, and understood. That's why we attach to each other. That's why we need each other. Something that I know this client of mine probably isn't aware of and wasn't intending is one of the things that was a common thread in his story is his faith. Even as a young boy, he had tremendous faith. Even when his stepfather threatened to kill him, he still had faith. He's like, I knew he wasn't going to. I knew I was going to be okay. And he had this faith, and he shared these stories of what he called like the 11th hour, the angel always showed up. And his angel could have been the customer service lady at the hospital who erased his medical bill because she found out that his stepmother, he didn't really do well with the step-parents. His stepmother took him off the insurance. So then he would have this huge medical bill. The angel at the customer service at the hospital had the power and she did it. She hooked him up. And he had so many stories like this where he knew he was taken care of. There was no outside evidence right? There was nothing that he could touch or see with his eyes or hear with his ears. It was inside of him. And he had so many examples of evidence where he was taken care of. And it's why he had faith. Even though he had so much of this darkness that was after him. And that helped me. He didn't probably realize it, but it was medicine that I needed, because I'm going through a huge transition in my life that is requiring a lot of courage, Him sharing that with me was the exact medicine that I needed to hear, because I realized, oh, I've never had my life threatened, thankfully. I haven't gone through what he's gone through, but I have had times in my life where I've always been taken care of. Right when I didn't think that I was going to be, and right when I thought, the sky is falling and this isn't good, or I'm going to be homeless, or whatever it might be, my worst fears and the worst case scenario never happened. It never happened. And I was always taken care of. And so he inspired me to reflect back on my angels. And he inspired me to recall all the times in my life where I had really big changes and really big transitions that always turned out better. And there was no way I could have ever imagined it. So I thank him, and his story was medicine. So why am I sharing this with you? I'm sharing this with you to hopefully you're getting inspired to share your story. And I know you have way more than one, but here's today's action item. Is I invite you to ask your heart, because remember, your heart has all the answers. Ask your heart, which story do you feel called to share, and to whom? That's it. Which story of your life have you experienced that, you might have minimized, but come on, it's pretty awesome. And you enjoy telling it. If someone would listen, you enjoy telling it. And so I invite you to pick the story, and then I invite you to decide who is going to be the lucky soul to hear your story. It's less about who you want to hear the story, and it's more about who you know will. Okay, so really hear me on this. It's less about who you want to hear the story, and it's more about who you know will. So like I recently shared the story about my sister when I was 11 and what I went through. I want to be able to tell that story to my parents. I want to, because it was so awesome, but I know they couldn't hear it because their stuff, and it would trigger too much for them. But I have a new coach I'm working with, and I shared it with her because it told her something about who I am and also my relationship with my sister. And it felt good to share that with this new coach that I've hired. And so who do you know will want to hear the story? So not who do you want to share this with, but who do you know will appreciate this story? And if you can't think of anyone, okay, so here's my insurance policy for those of you going, Mandy, I can't think of anyone. No one? First off, I'm going to challenge you. If I were to gather up everyone in your life and I were to ask them, and if they were all in a room right now, and I asked them to raise their hand, who would love to hear your story about XYZ? No one would raise their hand? Not one soul? Well, if that is true, then we need to talk about upgrading the people in your life. Would you agree? Because that's messed up. Because people who really care about you and who are cheering for you, they want to know you. And they want to hear about what you've been through. If someone I cared about said, hey, can I tell you the story about when I went to Notre Dame and blah, 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 blah. Can I tell you the story about when I got lost in Italy? I haven't told anybody this story, and it's a funny story. Or can I tell you the story about how hard it was when my grandfather died? I haven't told anybody about that. If someone I cared about texted me, called me and said, hey, and this doesn't have to be an hour. This could be a 15-minute conversation. If someone I cared about reached out to me and said, hey, do you have 15 minutes where I can tell you a story about XYZ? It's, oh my gosh, yeah, I love that. That's way better than just not having any intention of talking, right? I'm going to challenge you that there is a soul that would love to hear your story. And I'm also going to give you an insurance policy here. So if you have no one and you can't think of anyone, a very simple thing you could do is, bloop, you could go on social media. You could go on social media, hit record and say, hey, everyone, I am going to share with you a story. And obviously make it be a story that is safe to tell about, that doesn't hurt anyone else publicly, right? So it's like we all, if you've been divorced, you've got stories, right? But would it hurt your ex to tell that story publicly, right? So that's things we want to think of. We're all about compassion here. So being mindful with that, of course. So I'm excited. I'm excited for you to share your story. This is going to do two things. One is it's going to help reinforce whatever lesson you are meant to learn from that story. So whenever I retell stories of overcoming challenges, like when I went through the Tony Robbins coach training and how hard that was, whenever I tell that story, I'm reminded of my courage, perseverance, and I'm also reminded of my intuition. It reinforces that every time I tell that story. And so when you tell your story that you feel called to tell, whatever character traits that you had to pull out in order to overcome whatever it was that you overcame, whatever it was that you went through, they're going to be enhanced. They're going to be highlighted. It's like they're going to be turned on. That's medicine for you. The other thing it's going to do, you don't know how it's going to impact the person who's going to be hearing your story. And here's something that I've learned the hard way. You don't know if the impact is going to happen today, tomorrow, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. I know I've heard stories from incredible people years ago that now I'm going, oh, that's good. I remember this one woman I met when I was 18, and she told me this story. And I actually remember being like, ugh, kind of like annoyed, like an 18-year-old, like whatever. And I remember this woman, telling me this story, and I just wanted her to get to the point. And she told me this beautiful story about like the metaphor of baking a pie, and how you can't rush baking a pie and how you got to go get the berries. And I remember sitting in her office and being 18 going, why is this woman talking to me about baking a pie? I want her to talk about me and my dreams and where I'm going. And I'm 46. She told me the story when I was 18. I didn't get it. I was like, ugh. And I remember even telling a friend, like, that was dumb. Now I look back at 46 years old, and she's like, Mandy, right now you're gathering your berries. You're putting it all together. Your pie's not going to be made yet. And I remember being like, I didn't get it. And I couldn't appreciate it. So just know, just in case, if you tell this story to someone and you're not really getting the facial expressions, or you're not getting the, wow, what happened next, right? If you're not getting that, that doesn't mean that you haven't planted seeds. It doesn't mean that, hey, they might be 46 years old going, oh, I get it now. Thanks. Thanks for telling me that story. I get the message. I get the lesson. It's none of our business, really, if you think about it, what someone receives from us telling our story and sharing our story. It's just important that we do it. This is what we used to do. This is what we used to do when we lived in tribes. When we got around the fire, we told stories. That's what we did. And that's why we didn't suffer from loneliness. And that's why we weren't isolated. And that's why we didn't suffer from the anxiety and depression that we suffer from today. Because we shared our stories constantly, every day, by the council fire. So I'm not sharing anything that's new. This is actually old. But what are we doing now? This is what we're doing now. We're not connecting. We're addicted, and I'm not shaming us, okay? I'm just as addicted too. I had to put, my niece showed me how to put app limits to my phone because I am addicted too. You know, it's hard not to be. They're designed to be addicted. So this is why this is really powerful for you to do these exercises. You might think that, oh, is this really going to make that much of a difference? The ripple effect of this, you are taking action. Think about it. You are taking action by you consciously and deliberately sharing a story with someone you love and you care about, or to a group of people, or on social media, whatever your heart feels called to do. You're doing something that is completely against our toxic culture. You don't think that's going to make an impact? That's absolutely going to make an impact. And I would love to hear from you on what it felt like. What was it like for you to share your story? Day 17! You did it! I'll see you on day 18. Take care, my friend.